In this tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to paint an anemone flower in acrylics in 7 easy steps. All right, let's get started. Okay, so the colors that we're starting out with are titanium white, cadmium yellow medium, quinacridone red, ultramarine blue, and phthalo green. And I have linked all my supplies that we're using today down in the video description so that you can find those exact colors, those exact materials. So the first color that we're gonna make is just a nice base red for the petals. So I'm gonna bring some of my red over and we're gonna warm it up with a little yellow and lighten it a little bit with a little white. Now this is probably the largest amount of a color we're gonna need for the whole painting because most of the painting is the petals of the flower. So I'm gonna make a good amount here and just swirl those colors together. That looks good. And I'm gonna add a bit of water to help the paint just glide off my brush a little bit easier on the paper. Okay. So we're gonna build our anemone out off of a center point. So I'm gonna just make a little dot right there. So first, I'm gonna just do some little brush strokes, kind of outlining the first petal like that. And then just fill it in. And the wetness of the paint feels pretty good to me. If it feels like it's still too dry to you, go ahead and add a bit more water to your paint. Let's see, so now I think I'm gonna go ahead and add a petal here. And anemones can have kind of like a little pointed tip to them, so maybe on some of these petals we'll add a little point there. Okay, and then let's go ahead and add one here. And then we'll do one right here. Okay, and it never comes out perfect the first time, so if some of the petals look a little bigger, we can adjust size. Like maybe this one, I think I'll make just a little bit bigger to kind of match the way I did those other ones. There we go. And now we'll add a back row of petals. So I'm going to just kind of place them in between these ones that are in the front. And I'm just gonna leave a little hint of the background just to help me see the edge. We're gonna take care of that in the end, but for now, just to kind of see the line between the two. Also, we want to make sure that we're keeping kind of a round shape. It doesn't have to be perfect, but we don't want the outside petals to be way beyond these foreground petals. You just kind of tuck right back in there. The thing I love about flowers is that they are never perfect. They are always a little bit fluffy, wonky. They're very forgiving, and I think that's why I feel so comfortable painting them, is that they're very forgiving when you make little mistakes or do wonky brush strokes. There, that looks pretty good. Not perfect, but it's totally fine. Okay, next we're going to make a shadow for the creases of the petals. So we're gonna grab some red, a little bit of yellow, not too much. And then we need a tiny touch of green, like just a little tip of green. This green is really strong and it can make your color muddy real fast. So the green is to kind of make the red start tending towards brown, to help us darken that color and make it a little bit more muted for the shadows, the creases on the petals. So starting from the base of each petal, I'm just going to do a few little creases like that, just to kind of show that they have, they're not perfectly smooth. They've got some little shadows and some little irregularities. And I'm going to do the front petals first. And they don't all have to be the same, the exact same number of creases. Doing them slightly differently and spreading them out differently helps them look more natural, so you're not like following a perfect pattern. And some of your brush strokes can be a little thicker, some a little thinner. Just depends on how hard you press down or how high up on the tip of the brush you are. Okay, so then for the back petals, because they are hiding behind, they can be a bit more shadowy. So we're gonna use this color to kind of help define those petals, the edge between them and the front ones, and then sort of do some strokes forward to help them kind of stand out. So if there's some white hiding in there you wanna get rid of, you can use this darker brown red to get rid of that. Okay, while we give our petals a minute to dry, we're going to make a stem and some leaves. So we'll go over here and grab some green, but this phthalo green is really dark, so we're going to just lighten it up with some yellow and make it a bit earthier by getting a bit of red. Let's see how that does for us. That I think is still a little on the dark side, so I'm going to grab some more yellow and a bit of white. And anemones have nice kind of chunky, wavy stems, so I am going to test out where do I want this to come from. I'm kind of imagining maybe we'll have it come right here. And then for the leaves, they're very lacy and kind of light and fluffy, so with very like zigzaggy edges. So I'm just gonna do some little strokes that connect together up at the top. Like that. And for this side, maybe we'll make them kind of go curve the other direction. Okay, now that our petals have had a minute to dry, the base color is mostly dry, we're gonna make a highlight color to just help them pop out and look really bold and beautiful. So I'm gonna bring over some white and some red and some yellow. We're gonna go for sort of a peachy, pinky color. And we wanna make sure this is quite a bit lighter than the base color or medium red color, so that it really does pop out and not sort of darken as it dries and just sort of fade in and not create that contrast that we're looking for. So I'm gonna add a bit more white. I think that has a good amount of contrast. I might add just a bit more white here. And when you have mixed a color up, your brush might be feeling kind of fat and full of that paint. And if you're having a hard time getting really thin strokes again, go ahead and just kind of twist your brush to get all the paint out that you can, and then give it a rinse, and that will help it be able to keep a really nice tip and point when you want to paint those finer details. So let's try it. We're gonna get the tip back, and then we're just gonna sort of stroke through our paint to keep the point on the brush. So we're going to start at the tips of the flowers and just do some little creases that are kind of going the opposite way of the shadows. And this is also a nice chance to kind of show the edge between petals too. We can use this highlight color to kind of define that edge on some of them. And I'm trying to be lighter, have a lighter touch on the highlights of the petals that are peeking out from behind, because they're not catching as much of the full light because they're hiding behind there. So I'm trying to bring more of our attention, more of the highlights to these center petals here. Okay, now it is time for the white sort of center part of the petals. So the base of each petal is going to have a ring of white on it. So first, we're gonna make sure to keep our shape on that goes across each petal in sort of a circle shape. So I'm gonna just make a little mark about how far out I want that to be on each petal. And that's going to be sort of the top of the curve of the markings. So we'll go like that. And then I'm gonna just use little strokes to kind of make this white base on each petal. And you wanna make sure the colors underneath are mostly dry, or else they're gonna start mixing and kind of muddying up your white. So just make sure those shadow colors are dry, or just have a really light hand on top of the wet paint so that we're not pressing down and kind of mixing that into our white color. And I'm just gonna fill in the whole center there with the white, because our black middle will just cover that all up. Okay, and as the white is drying, I can see it starting to get a little bit see-through, because we are painting on top of such a really dark and bold color. So I'm gonna just go back over some of the areas and do a second layer of white to help that be a little thicker and a little brighter. Okay, so the next color we're gonna do is a dark green for the shadow on the leaves. So I'm just gonna grab our dark phthalo green, and we could use it as is. I think I'm going to just grab a bit of this red and tint it just a little bit with that red to help it maybe be a little bit of a warmer green. Ooh, that got very dark. So let's get a little bit of our highlight color. There we go. I think that's a nice dark, but not like black green. And right at the base of the flower, I'm just going to have it be darks, because the flowers kind of could be casting a shadow on the stem there. And then I'll just choose a side and bring the shadow down a bit more. And then for these leaves, just going to kind of define them with some little strokes of this darker color, just to show that they have some texture and some creases in there. I don't really like how the shadow blobbed together and kind of made the light green a weird shape there, so I'm gonna come back with the light green. There, just soften it up a little bit there. Okay, we are almost done. We're gonna make the color for the center of the flower and the little stamens that come off of it. So for anemones, it's this beautiful purpley black color. So we're going to bring some blue and some red down here together. And when we mix them up, they make a pretty deep, pretty purple. And so to knock it towards black, like a little bit more of a neutral color, we're going to bring some green in, just a touch of that green. Now this mixture is super dark. So to test it out, we can make like a little dab of it and then just sort of spread it around. That still is a very blue color, so I'm going to come over and get a bit more red and a bit more green. All right, let's do a test right here. There, yeah, that's a little bit deeper, more of like a purpley indigo. So I'm happy with that color. And we'll go ahead and put in the circle center of our anemone. So I'm just gonna sort of dab, dab, dab. Dab a little circle right in the middle of the white there. And if you have trouble being symmetrical, feel free to turn your paper whatever way you need to turn it to get that shape. Now here comes a part where we need to be really light-handed and detailed. So I am going to rinse out my brush so that we can have a really nice point on it. Okay, make sure to squeeze all the water out of your brush so that we're not dripping water, we're not having any accidents making the paint more runny than we mean to. I'm gonna get the point back on my brush, and then I'm just gonna drag it through our beautiful indigo, keeping the point on there, and you can kind of twirl it as you drag to keep those bristles together in a nice point. Okay, so now we're gonna make these pretty little stamens. So we're going to push down at the beginning and then kind of lift up as we flick it towards the center. So I'll show you. We're gonna make a little flicking dashes like that where it's a bit, our stroke is a bit wider at the end, the outside end, and then it becomes thinner as it goes towards the center. So this takes a little practice, but we're wanting to do them not so that they cover up the white, we want them to be down within the white. And I come over and kind of get some more paint and get the tip back on my brush, the point back on there. And we're just gonna go all the way around. Here we go. Okay, and then we're going to just do some little dashes and create a thicker ring to kind of show that the ends of all those stamens are a little bit bigger and towards the outer ring. So here we go. We're just gonna kind of dash right along that outer edge of all of our pretty little stamens. There we go. And then the last tiny little step that we're gonna do is just grab a bit of white and bring it over to our indigo. This is like our last half step. And just create a slightly lighter shade and just dab, dab, dab it a little bit in that center, like dot it in there to give it just a bit of nuance, a little bit of texture. You can kind of go back and forth with your dark and get it the way that you want it to be. But when you leave it just plain black, it kind of looks flat and lifeless. So just dabbing a little bit of that lighter blue on there makes it have more dimension, like the light is shining on it like it is the rest of the flower. Okay, and that is the last detail for the anemone. We are all finished. Thanks so much for painting with me. That was a lot of fun. If you have a question about the tutorial or about acrylics in general, feel free to drop a comment down below the video and I would love to chat with you about it. All right, I will see you in the next video. And until then, happy painting.